There was a death during the CrossFit Games, and I was shocked to learn about it. This was one of the few times that I haven't sat down and watched the CrossFit Games from beginning to end, and I simply showed up at the gym, and my coach said, no, actually, we worked out outside that day. We worked out in the field, in the park, and coach said, you saw what happened at the games. And for a second, I thought, well, yeah, we have some people we know competing, and then I looked in coach's eyes. I said, what? She said, you don't know. No. Someone drowned. An athlete, and I know I'm going to mess up his last name, and I've been rehearsing this and trying to get this right. Lazar Dukic, D-U-K-I-C is how we would spell it, drowned. This is an image of this man from a tribute that CrossFit put together. CrossFit HQ created a tribute to him during the games. The drowning, I don't know that I care to show you the video of him drowning because, again, it's very, very difficult to watch. He'd gone on a very long run at about a 6-minute mile pace. Now, people who are runners are going to say, well, that's an okay pace, except you understand something that this guy weighed 225 pounds. This is not a small body to move around, and then jumped in for a swim. What I understand from people who were there at the CrossFit Games is the water was very, very warm. There was no real way to cool the body down, and they were competing. This image, for me, strikes at the heart of this for me as a human being. You see an athlete in tears. His name is James Sprague. In behind him is Brent Furkowski, who's a legend in CrossFit. James is a guy I've gotten to speak with pretty regular occasions. I've got to know his dad a little bit, Pat Sprague. Pat is one of the kindest men I've ever known. He himself is a CrossFit competitor, third in the world in my age group. I believe it was 3 years ago. And a man who took his precious time while training for the games. He took his precious time to, number one, congratulate me on a workout, and number two, to coach me. He didn't need to do that. No one's paying him to coach this old dude who can't get near his level of competition. This image of James in tears is James after he won his first competition, his first individual competition at the CrossFit Games. There's a whole series of competitions, and to win one is a pretty big deal. He's seated next to an empty box. That would have been the box set on which Lazar would have climbed. James is in tears. No doubt mixed emotions. James happens to be a fantastic servant of the Lord Jesus. In fact, after he won, and he did win the CrossFit Games this year, he was 21st last year. Prior to that, he'd failed to make the games by one couple of seconds, failed to make the games. This year, he won it all. And he thanked the Lord Jesus in that. So what about this drowning and what the troll army did and what happened? You'll hear from an eyewitness in just a second as to what happened. And then I want to talk about the troll army and how this relates to the Common Core, my opinion is truth generation. Every single one of these athletes who goes into the games is going to go into that with some form of body challenge. I won't give away behind the scenes stuff that I don't have permission to say, but I can tell you that there were athletes there who you and I, if we were going through what they were going through, we wouldn't be doing anything like competing because it would be too painful for us. I know this for a fact because I've got this behind the scenes knowledge. But I can also tell you this. In daily life, there are people who are having pain that they don't need to have, and they're getting bad advice from American medical associations. Advice like, look, you're going to have surgery. You're going to have a nerve block. You're going to have to get in and we're going to scrape these tendons out. You're going to have to live with this. You're going to have to change your house because you're always going to be hemispherically paralyzed. This does not have to be the case. We are not allowed to do what Renew.Healthcare does in Mexico in this country, even though it is absolutely ethical. They use stem cells from placentas and umbilical cords, period. Never anything to do with abortion, ever. And they pay for the entire childbirth of the women with whom they work, whether or not they accept their stem cells, because Renew only accepts the best stem cells. They then culture those stem cells. This is vitally important because it increases the safety of the stem cells. Every single one of these stem cells is potential power. They're building cells. They get into your body. The first thing they do is they attack inflammation, and I mean destroy it. Then they go about rebuilding whatever they've been inserted into. In my case, my shoulder, and recently my ankle. You could be facing neuropathy, and you've been told it's just the way it is. You could be facing hemispheric paralyzation. I know of a woman who went there and walked out after she came in a wheelchair. There's even neurological issues they're seeing fantastic results with. You don't need to guess if they can help you. They'll tell you for free. Just go to renew.healthcare. That's renew.healthcare. Please do tell them that you are a member of the podcast or radio show family, renew.healthcare. This is an eyewitness to the drowning of Lazar, and there were many people in the crowd who saw what was happening.
Yeah, we were on the side. He was probably 150 meters out in the water, and I saw it. I saw him start to kind of scramble. He started to doing small turns, and he was trying to get his head out of the water. And it was at that time that we started screaming to the lifeguard, like, he needs help. And then within seconds, he was under, and he never came back up.
And I mean, watching the video, you can visibly see the two lifeguards there and him in the middle. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, from our standpoint, it just looks like nothing's being done to save him. But
yeah.
you had a different vantage point.
No, I agree. There was two lifeguards right there. The one lifeguard, because somebody actually jumped in, and the one lifeguard came over and talked to him and told him to get out of the water. But he said, listen, somebody's drowning. She ended up going over to where he went under, but she just did a quick paddle around and then just paddled back out. I feel like at that point, she needed to blow a whistle and stop the event, because you could have had a lot more help in there pretty fast. And that was only like a couple minutes after he had gone under. So at that point, something could have been done. But once the event's finished, it's 30 minutes gone, right? There's not much you can do at that point.
And I know how, I'm not in the CrossFit community, but I work out, I know how close that community is, but your guys is just like elitely close. Just talk about how this impacts you guys as a family.
I think the CrossFit community really needs to lean on each other right now, use the support of one another, because it's going to hit us all differently. It's devastating. I'm not too sure where the CrossFit Games is going to go from here, but they're going to have to make some drastic measurements to make sure that this never happens again. The community is very strong, which is going to help us get through this, but I'm just praying for his family.
It's from WFAA on YouTube. You can go subscribe to their channel. Speaking of family, Lazar's brother Lucas was competing in the games. The troll army left into action and started to explain that this is a result of CrossFit's randomized workouts and randomized programming. And this is a result of putting athletes through too much. And this is a result of everything they don't understand about the sport. There is no randomization. People believe that since in CrossFit we might do gymnastics and weightlifting one day, and the next night we might run a mile or a 5K. Then we might run a mile or a 5K and turn around and do deadlifts or box jumps within that. They think it's all randomized. It's not. The CrossFit methodology is the most scientifically robust definition of what it is to be fit in the world, because it all circles around the 10 essential skills of athleticism. The basic skills you have to have any form of athleticism. The tests in these games are about testing energy systems, your aerobic, your glycolytic, or your phosphogenic. It's about doing things like this. Look, a lot of people can lift a lot of weight. There's a lot of people, more than you'd think, men who can go deadlift 500 pounds, or women who can deadlift 400. How do they do that after they've run 2 miles in a race? How do you do then? It's not the randomization, because the randomization doesn't exist. It's also amazing that in a sport that takes in swimming, running, weightlifting, gymnastics, biking, rucking, there haven't been more deaths. Now, I'm not defending the decision to not have active lifeguards. I cannot defend the people on the paddleboards who didn't turn to see that. I cannot defend stopping a fan from getting in the water to try to save Lazar. I cannot defend that. It can't be defended. It was sloppy. It was horrible. But I will defend the methodology. I will also mention this. A Wisconsin man died competing in an Ironman race. He was a 51-year-old athlete. He required medical attention during the biking portion, later died at the hospital. He was the 15th triathlete to die in that year. This is from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reports that this is sadly not the first time an athlete died while participating in Ironman Wisconsin. 2019, 2 athletes died during the swimming portion of the race, which takes place in Lake Monona. Michael McCullough was taken to the hospital after being found unresponsive in the water, was pronounced dead due to an accidental drowning. A Madison firefighter named Todd Mahoney was also found unresponsive in the water during the Ironman 70.3 race, half the distance of a full Ironman. About an hour after McCullough, he was taken to the hospital and died 2 days later. Tragically, these kinds of deaths often occur. That in 2016, the Daily Beast published a story headlined, "Why do so many middle-aged men die during Ironman competitions?" There have been scientific studies exploring that question. At the time, 109 people had died during amateur triathlons, the majority of them middle-aged men competing for the first time. The man who died in Wisconsin was the 15th athlete to die in that year. Lazar was an elite athlete, but elite athletes are not above gravity, water. I obviously pray for his family. And it's not just triathletes. Bodybuilders end up dying. There is case after case after case of people who died in bodybuilding, largely because of steroid abuse. This is an image of Daniel Alexander. Alexander died. He was 30 years old. He's the guy on the left. He died. We could go through boxing, we can go through gymnastics, and the numbers are profound. There are a lot of deaths in extreme athletics, and bodybuilding is extreme. CrossFit could be seen as extreme. The fact that there haven't been more deaths, to me, indicates the great fitness of the athletes and the fact that they have, well, prepared themselves for the knowable and the unknowable. I'll continue to pray for Lazar's family, his soul, and for the CrossFit community. But this thing about jumping in with fact, Common Core taught people that your emotions equal opinion. It was horrible to watch that man die. Those are my emotions. That's not my opinion. That's my feeling. My opinion came after I investigated the statistics. My opinion was formed this way. All sports like this have risk of death. CrossFit has had far, far fewer than all these other sports combined. Now, it's a newer sport, but it combines all of these elements. The Common Core generation has been taught that feelings are facts. That is not just wrong, it's ungodly. It is to come in and make accusations like that. May God rest Lazar. May God guard his family.